I'm Ron Scott. I'm a owner of a training company. We specialise in governance training, governance education, and they're different. I'm the author of a book on governance, How to Become a Director, and that was the thought for that was from people who wanted to become school trustees and were saying things like, well, I've been at school, so I know how to run one. And if you take that to its logical conclusion, I've got a telephone, therefore I should run Telstra, you know. So there's a whole lot of gaps in between. I'm also on half a dozen trusts and boards. One trust I'm on gives $50 million away a year, and I'm on the board of the District Health Board, and we obviously fund, we've got revenue of 600 million, so that obviously goes out in vast proportions to not-for-profits and so on. And so that's what I've been here to talk about. What do funders look for at the governance level? I'm also on the applicant side of business. I am the chair of a charitable trust that has supported individualised living. That's people who live in houses, 3 or 4 people, spread over the city, so there's no ghetto. I'm the treasurer of Age Concern. So that's supposed to be my part-time stuff, but really actually takes up almost as much time as my real job. Well, it's based in Tauranga in New Zealand, on the east coast of New Zealand, but we work across New Zealand and Australia. We have a certificate in governance, which is an NZ Qualifications Authority recognised qualification that it's got exams, it's got tests, it's got assignments, and when you've completed that, that means that you've gone through the hoops to become a director. So that's our flagship sort of program. But a lot of our work is consulting with small organisations actually, who've got a group together, realise that they are not as effective as they could be and want to know more. Finance for people who've never seen books before. In New Zealand there's been a lot of collapses of financial companies and directors are going to jail. Good people who had good reputations for not dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. So people are worried about what their legal requirements are. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, so when I explain those things, it's in terms of plain English. And then there's that interface between, people say management and governance, and they're like they're sort of separate things. And I'm thinking that there's a relationship between them. If they don't work, then you're in trouble. And of course, in the NGO sector, especially at the smaller end, often they're the same. You've got executive committees who are being told, oh no, you're in a governance role, so they stop doing anything and wondering why the organisation's going backwards. Or they've got one manager who's wondering why the board's interfering because governors aren't supposed to. And so there's the real life stuff that underlies the theory. So that a lot of my time is spent explaining that you're allowed to live in the real world actually. There's some differences only around the margins really. Like there's some differences in terms of details of laws, but in general there's common precepts. If you are running an organisation, you've got to look at the purpose, you've got to look at the people you've got to look at the processes. Got those right, you're on the way. Then you've got to check whether your values and your vision mean anything to anybody else. If you're asking people to get involved, then you've got to have a vision that gets them excited. You've got to have values that they associate with. And that then gives you the third V, which is vitality. Now you've got an organisation that's starting to hum. You've got to look at looking after your assets, the stewardship. And your assets are obviously, your balance sheet stuff, but also it's your people, it's looking after your stakeholders and all the things that make your organisation what it is. And you've got to look at whether or not there's a strategic view. And often strategy is said to be one of the first things you've got to do. In fact, you've got to get all those other things right before you look at strategy, because what are you strategising over if you haven't got anything to move about? You get all those things right, and it doesn't matter if you live in Auckland or Timbuktu, you've got an organisation that's going to achieve something, which is the whole point of it really. One of the analogies I made was a program, it's a British program called Dragon's Den. And I think they had an Australian version as well, where entrepreneurs set up, they've invented something, they come along and talk to some self-made people and say, back me. And every single time when the self-made people with the money do back the entrepreneur, it's because they're backing the person, not the product. Often the product is rubbish, but they said, well, we can work with, we can change the product. If we can't change the person, and we need to, then we're just not going to invest at all. So if someone comes to me as a funder and says, we want to run this project, then we're going to say, who are you? Who's backing you? What support have you got if you get run over? I mean, we're in Melbourne. You like to get run over by a tram, aren't you? If you get run over by a tram, who backs you up? Who's there? What's your succession plan? If you can't enunciate what your purpose is and what your vision is, then no matter how good your succession plan is, I don't believe that you've enunciated it to the person who's going to replace you. So be able to do that for us. There's another point I want to make, and that's this. One of the people asked me during the question time, look, I'm running this particular event and there's no one who will fund it and there's no way of getting money, and the only way we can support our sponsors by doing this. And I said to her, my organisation last year couldn't give away all the money we had available to give away. Our purpose is to give away money, so that's the trouble. We sit down at the meeting at the beginning and say, we want to say yes to every single person here, and then people in their applications work out ways to convince us to say no. And they do. There's money out there, believe me. There's funding available. There's riches out there. If you can find people who've got a commonality of purpose, find someone who's got a commonality of that vision, think what value can you provide to the other organisation, and you'll find that there's still money there. In fact, what I said was, who here could give at least 50 cents to this project that this woman's asked about? 3/4 of the meeting put their hand up. I don't know why the others don't have 50 cents to rub together, but I mean, there's money there, just not all at once in one back pocket. And so one of the lessons is, don't be lazy. You know, it's not the funder's job to make getting money easy. It's the funder's job to give the money that they think it's worth. Your job is to make it worth lots. There's a big change in formal philanthropy, if you like, and it's a trend I haven't really come to accept, and that is that if I'm giving you money, I want to be involved in your project. And the doubt I have about it, and I haven't thought all the way through, so I'll accept the discussion. My doubt about it is, my expertise is in giving money, your expertise is in whatever you do. What's in my head that I want to control that? And it seems as if there's something not quite right about that process. But that is a big trend at the Philanthropy New Zealand conference held earlier this year. It was about getting involved in the projects and in fact starting projects. And I don't know, it came across, this is going to be controversial, it came across as a job creation scheme for the people who work for philanthropists. And that worried me. I think that there are people out there who've got the creativity, invention, are involved in the communities, have got whatever they want to do, who can come up with the projects. And one of the dangers is that if, for instance, as a philanthropist, I said, these are the projects I want to support, and I decided that what I want to support is social housing and health and stopping abuse of relationships, because that's my area of interest. What happens to the people who actually just want to do public art, right? Or who want to do things which some people would call wasting money? Just because I'm the one with the money, it's not always my money. That's the thing. As a member of a DHB, it's taxpayers' money. There's the member of the District Health Board. As a member of the Energy Consumers Trust, it's the money belongs to the consumers of people who buy power off Trustpower. So it's not my money, and I'm asking to control it, that just seems wrong to me. If you think about, people ask, does governance matter? And the answer to that has got to be yes, otherwise why would you bother having them? And if you just take my little corner of the world about funding and governance, if the project's wonderful, but the governance is hopeless, I'll say no every day. If the project is okay and the people are fantastic, and I know that the people will do everything they can because they've got the processes to make the project a success, and I know that the people who will get involved with the project will have fun and enjoy it, and there'll be some outcomes, even if it's a 50-50 call, they'll get the money. From that point of view, what's the governance worth? Well, in the Western Bay of Plenty, where I come from, it's worth at least $250 million just with who I'm involved with. So if you want to put a dollar amount on it, there you go.